I pass the talking stick to you, sister.
Well, good morning to you, Lark, and anyone else who's with us. And I just bless every single person, every hearer, every child of the hearer, onto the seventh generation, because it is the most powerful thing we do is gather together and speak our truths and tell our stories. So to begin, first I'm going to sing a morning blessing song because I just fed my birds. I'm in a little cottage in the woods, and I just fed my birds. It's morning. We have an ice storm here, and so it is a harsh winter morning in the little valley where I live as a hermitess. So we'll begin. I'll use my own hips and my own body as my drum. And this is a Cherokee morning blessing song. Windeyaho, windeyaho, windeya, windeya, ho, 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 hey ho, ya, ya, ya. And usually I sing it a long time, or 3 or 4 or 10 times, whatever feels right, but I'm looking around at my world. And because I'm with another person, Lark, and Pete, please, the people that are with us today, we start by asking, what is the state of our soul? Like when we come together, what else is in the room? What is the truth that we're bringing this morning? So I will ask Lark, who's asked me to join her today. Lark, what is the state of your soul?
The state of my soul is a longing and desire for new beginnings. I will be processing my hair later today, and I'm hoping that through this material exterior action that I can find maybe a little more confidence or courage, and that it helps me to have a new outlook on this new year.
Well, blessings on your new beginnings and things that bring us happiness. They're the most positive direction for our new beginnings. So blessings. Anyone else that wish to speak about the state of their soul that's with us today?
Yes, I'm Lark's mother, Melanie. My name is Melanie. And I just had a little cry, because the state of my soul, my heart, it's heavy. When I, hear the word like family and mother, I feel a lot of different emotions. Not only do I get sad, but I also get a little upset. And I just never felt, I was just always abandoned by my mother. And it started when I was a little baby. So all these feelings, they come rushing back when I hear family and mother and stuff like that. So because I heard those 2 words a little earlier, that's just, what's on my heart. It's really heavy.
Melanie, thank you for being with us and for speaking your truth. I was imagining you holding the talking stick and speaking your truth, taking the time to be honest, and you are not alone. It's so sad. As little one, we feel so alone if we're abandoned, but in this great audience, listening to the people that are carrying a about Lark and her work, you are not alone, because there are many of us who at the beginning of our live stream, and maybe even carrying forward the tribal evils, they keep us separated from our lineage. So I honor you for speaking your truth.
Thank you,
and
Sister.
For myself, I'm Sister MorningStar here with Lark this morning, and I lost my mother in December of this year, and it is a great loss to our tribe. Her name is White Deer, and I have shared a little bit in my own media. If people follow that at all, Sister MorningStar, I live in a little cottage in the woods, so I do not listen to these things. But I have a media guru and people like Lark and various people around the world. So there is a way to find some of this information out there if you connect in that way. But I lost my mother, and it's been a great journey for myself and our whole tribe. So, state of my soul this morning, as I begin to speak to Lark about it, it's a little bit like the mythological story of Persephone and Demeter. So for a long time now, I have been that lost child down in the underworld with my flesh rotting on a hook and just crying out. And a little bit this morning, which is why I'm with you, is I also now a little bit, Demetra, I hear the cries of my lost self, of my lost child, and I am determined to go to the underworld and retrieve her. And so I must have a plan. And part of my plan, like with the story, is to let my best friend know I'm going to go. I'm going down into this deep underworld and find my child, the lost part of myself, crying out. So if I am not back in this certain amount of time, go find the wise one. I'm telling you where, I'm going to say where she lives. You must go get her, and she will know how to come and find me. If I am not back, then I too have become lost, and you must come and find me, and she will know how. So, please, this is my plan, and I am determined and devoted. So that is the state of my soul this morning. I will make the descent as the mother to hear the cries of my lost self and wrap my cloak of love around her and give her life again. Put her soft flesh and underbelly inside and wrap my cloak around her, and we will rise back up. That is my state of my soul today. And as I was speaking that, I was holding a talking stick that my best friend and I are working on. I have many talking sticks, but I'm beginning my travels again this year, and so I wanted a new talking stick for this symbol, like Lark is saying, new beginnings, my evolved self. And so I'm holding that. We have beautiful feathers on it and beads that she's made and woven yarns, many colors. And I will see her this week, and we will add to it. So I used that as I was speaking my truth. So we can begin. Lark, I hand the talking stick back to you to see what direction do you want this discussion to take for your people today.
I just want to say thank you so much, Sister, for holding space for the big emotions that have come forth this morning. But I would like to talk about your journey to birthkeeping. What inspired you to do the work that you do?
Well, let's see. First of all, I want to say, yes, we have emotion because we are not robots. We're real. We're real people. We have real experiences, a real past, maybe many lifetimes, and we are queens. For women, we're queens creating our queendom. That has real motivation and real experiences in the present, and then to have a vision and how to live it forward. So maybe that's a little bit what you're talking about. So my entrance into birth work, well, let's see. From my story, it begins with my own birth because I was born very, very, very unusually in 1953. My mother was dying of tuberculosis, and I was born in a TB sanitarium, and babies were not born there. So it was the first baby to be born in a facility outside of home, of our people, from the dawn of time. My mother herself, so maybe it starts with my mother. She was born at 3.5 pounds at home, and there was a doctor that had, old-time doctor that had come by, and he told my grandmother, this one will not make it. Just leave it to the side. It won't make it. And so my great-grandmother, she picked the child up. That was my mother. And it was winter, November 1st, All Saints Day, and she dripped milk in her mouth through the night by the wood stove. And that baby the next morning was still alive. That was my mother. So that strong woman, she grew up a little bit, not very old, as a teenager, and she had me. And also a brother before me. But when she had me, I was born, she was dying of tuberculosis, and so I was born in a TB sanitarium. They did not do babies. So I was the only baby born in this space. People were dying all around. Most of the people did die in 1953 in that sanitarium, but they had some experimental drugs they were using, and my mother volunteered to go on those, and that's a different story, but she did live. But meanwhile, I was born, and in my own regression memory, right, I was there. So even though my conscious mind can't remember, but I was there. So my whole body knows, right? It's not just past life, it's this life. And with my dreams and my work, I was able to remember that everybody was so happy. I was a little living thing, and I was healthy. Nothing else in the hospital healthy. But I was healthy and apparently beautiful and radiant. I'm a little Leo, so probably I was radiant. And there was just all this happiness and joy all around me, but not my family. Right? And so Mother, she was not allowed to touch me. She got to see me for a brief moment, and then I didn't see her for a couple of years. Other people took care of me. My grandmother finally, and my grandfather came and got me, but it took lots of, that's another big piece of the story. But it's all about birth, right? For me. It's all about birth. So my mother's birth and then my birth. Then I did live too, of course. Raised in the woods with my grandmother and beautiful nature and instinctual life. I did not know other people had another life than that. But I grew up and found out. So I'll just jump forward because maybe that's not so interesting to people. But when I had my first child, I did have her in a hospital. I didn't really know about or think about another way. In that time, it was 1975, and gone to college, and there was just no connection with another way to do these things back then. At that time, all the underground was underground. And so I had her in the hospital, but I had her in 1 hour and 53 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, my first child, and 1 hour and 53 minutes. And the whole time I was thinking, wow, if these people would leave me alone, I would be having so much fun. It was so big experience. It was so powerful. I had gone to the Niagara Falls earlier in the pregnancy, and I live in the Midwest, so I know about thunderstorms and all of this. And I thought to myself, wow, all of the power of the universe, it has chosen me. It is trying to come through me, like the thunderstorms and like the Niagara Falls, the biggest waterfall in the world or that I had ever seen. Like all that power, it has decided to choose me today, and it's just going to come through me. And it was so immense and yes, I'll just say that. It just cosmic. It is so immense. I didn't use that word at the time, but I just felt all of nature has chosen me this day. And I could have so much fun if these people were not shouting at me and moving me and doing things to me. Back then, they tied you down. So someone was, and it was moving so fast, and they were in shock. They're like, no, it's not possible. You're first baby. But I'm a tribal woman, right? And they don't understand these things. So they were quickly trying to tie down my legs and tie down my arms. They call them strap down. And I was just pleading with my arms to the nurse, please don't tie my arms. Please don't, because it felt so captured. I felt so raped, so captured. So things are going to happen to my body that is against my agreement, my will. However, I had agreed because I walked in the door. So I walked in the door. So I was the one that said yes. But she was a wounded woman too, and she whispered in my ear, I won't make it so tight. Just don't try to touch anything. Don't reach for anything. But I won't make it so tight. And she was just also captured in that system, but trying to offer me a kindness. And I always remember her. I shall never forget her, because she looked in my eyes and whispered to me and went against her system to offer me a kindness. And so I had my baby. She was not even 6 pounds, 5 pounds and something, but still they did an episiotomy at the time. Even though it was not necessary, but they did that. And so my recovery was painful because of that. It hurt so bad I couldn't sit down and this and that. So by the time I had my second child, I said to myself, there has got to be a better way to have a baby than that. There's got to be. And so, of course, then 1978, and I had we didn't have internet and all that then, but I went to La Leche League and health food stores that were just beginning, and I found out, you could have your baby at home. And I was in Missouri. So all midwives, all home birth, it was underground. There was no legal way to do this. But I found out about it. And the moment I heard the word home birth, I was like, I will do that. That's what I'll do. I will do it at home. And I remember telling the father of my children, this child, we're going to birth this child at home. And he said, well, I'm not sure I'm okay with that. And I said, well, that's all right, because you don't have to have the baby. So you don't have to worry about it. And next life, if you come back to a female, you can do it however you wish. But this life is my baby, and I'm the one that has to open up and give birth, and I'm going to do it at home. And so we began that journey of supplies and figuring out, and of course we had to have it was crazy back then, right? We had to have transport vehicles that would the midwife that was going to be with me, we had to park her car at a different place and then pick up different car and bring, because everything was underground. And no one could know these things, because it would put in danger our beautiful midwives that were helping us. And we loved our midwives. It wasn't like today where people find fault with them, and we were also deeply devoted to this great thing that we were doing and helping each other. So that was my entrance into birth work, through my grandmother helping my mother, and my mother having me in a time and place unlike any of my peers at the time, and then me having my child in this way that was like, oh my goodness, no. And then next baby, of course, born at home, and also very, very interesting birth, but that's not what this is about. And then the father of my child, he caught that baby, second baby. He caught her with me on my side, with my arms and legs free, and doing whatever my arms and legs wanted to do. He caught that baby, and I said to myself, there's got to be a better way to have a baby than this. And with my next daughter, so 3 daughters, with my next daughter, I had her, of course, at home, but I had her in a squat, and I caught her myself. And I said to myself in that moment, this is how I have a baby. This is what makes me happy to have my baby. I caught her myself, raised her up to my heart and chest, and just threw my head back, just like you see in all the ancient carvings, and I had my baby in my arms free, me holding my own baby, and my head back in bliss and happiness. This is how I have my baby. And she was so beautiful and happy, and nobody assessing her. Me, I could feel her. She's alive. I didn't even have to think, is she alive, not alive? It was a wiggly thing in my arms. My conscious mind did not have to think about things. My primal mind was taking in all information I needed. So that, because of that, okay, then my friends, they began to say, will you help me? And I said, well, why wouldn't I? They were my dear friends. We were all having babies at the same time. And I said, well, why wouldn't I? They just loved my stories and my glow. And they're like, I want that. So we all just started having our babies at home, helping each other. And then that's the thing that happened, is we were helping each other, and then people would start to call me because I loved it. I loved every part of it. I loved the pregnancy part and going over what we were eating. That's why I started now, many, many decades later, Prenatal Village, because we were like that. We were women at the well. We ate together and walked together and talked together about our dreams, our relationships, our relationship with our mother, our partners, other children. We knew if we were healthy or not, and baby growing, because we were walking to the well together all the time, so to speak, living together and talking together and sharing meals together. We cared about each other. Or go visit someone who's pregnant, one of our people that was our circle. But then other people started calling me cousins or a friend, and I did not know them. I did not know these people. And they were like, but I know Mary Lou, or I know, Sarah. And so I'm her cousin. Will you please help me? And that was a game changer for me. To help someone that I didn't know. It was important that I knew someone they knew. That was very important to me. But still, it was a game changer. And in college, I had been a pre-med student. So I loved anatomy and physiology and all of this. So I sought out an apprenticeship. I sought out a beautiful woman who was very skilled and very wise and very older. And we actually had been in a past life together. She had saved my life once. I didn't know that until I was deep in my apprenticeship with her. But and I began my apprenticeship. And it was a beautiful, deep 4-year experience. And it was very serious back then. But that was in the 80s. I must go to every single prenatal for that mother if I was going to be with that mother of hers. Every single prenatal, arrive early, help get the home, everything ready for my teacher, do the prenatal day or whatever, stay afterwards and review each case. What did I learn? And then if and when we went to the birth, then of course at the birth all the time we would be at a birth for 3 days or whatever it took for that mother. And always at least 24 hours after the birth, doing the laundry, getting the food ready, helping with the children, answering all of her first 24-hour questions because we're right there. And then we would, before I would go home, we would stop at a 24-hour diner or wherever it was in the middle of the night and review that case right then and there. What did you learn? What did you see? Why did this happen? And then she would give me something to study. If it was a hemorrhage, or if it was a dystocia, or if it was this or that, or if we had been working with something during the pregnancy, and then did it show up in the labor, or did it not show up, and study and find out why. And is she happy? And what is her financial and social and resource needs? And is everything in place for her to move forward with this new joy, but also new responsibility in her life? Okay, so that was my apprenticeship. And it was very important and very grounding for me. And I felt like, okay, maybe now I can help someone that I don't know. And I remember the very first Luann Brown. Luann, if you're out there or if you're still alive or anybody who knows her, she was having like maybe her 9th child. And she asked me if I would help her, and I didn't know her. I don't remember how she found out about me. And I remember we always had and still 3 to 6 hour interviews before I would accept someone, and then never accept them immediately. It would be like, okay, think about it, then we'll talk about it again. And I would meet at their home, or they would meet at my home, and we share a meal and see, do we share enough values? Because this is most serious and most joyful and most important thing that's going to happen in your life is your child. And it's going to live or die. I don't have any power over that. So this is the journey that you're asking me to go into with you.
May I say something, sister?
Yes, you may.
I think that's so beautiful that you said, it should take a very long time, 3 to 6 hours to see if it's the right fit and if your beliefs align. In my sort of the beginning part of my birth-keeping journey, I was offered a position at a birth center, and they would put our profile on a website, and they would read a little bit about us, like a bio, and then they would pick maybe 2 or 3 of the ladies, and they would have 15-minute calls with us to decide if who would be right for their birth. And it felt like a sort of like a matchmaking service, and to me it didn't really feel right. It didn't feel like there was enough time for connection. So I just wanted to say I completely agree and align with what you said.
Well, thank you for your comments. Humored me. She just humored me, and I went over and over what I didn't know. I'm a brand new baby midwife, even though I had been to all these other births. But I was letting her know, I'm this brand new baby midwife. I'm not a little old granny midwife that has all of this lifelong of experience and whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And I just wore her out with what was trying to talk her out of hiring me because it was going to be for pay. So that was another big change, right? Because all of us women that had helped one another, I'm not saying we didn't pay one another because we did by either helping with childcare or helping with food or helping. I mean, we were very, very respectful of each other's time and gifts. But we didn't pay money. And this was going to be money. And so anyway, I don't know that was foremost on my mind, but I was trying to talk her out of working with me. And she just was so patient. And finally she said, well, how are you going to become a little old granny midwife if you don't get started? And that was what won my heart over with Luann Brown. I said, okay, then we will do it. And it was her 9th baby, and it was beautiful birth. And she named her child after my child. She had loved one of my beautiful middle child, Emery's name, and named her child that. So that was my entrance into birth work. That was your question. It was a very, very long answer. Thank you for receiving me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about so I know eventually you did get a license. How long did it take you to...
I did not. That is not accurate.
Oh, okay. The letter to NARM, was that more of...
That's not a license. That's a certificate. So I became a certified professional midwife.
Okay.
A license is something that each state does. A license is something that each state provides. NARM is a national certifying body.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, NARM is a national certifying body. They certify midwives. So it's like you go to a school, or in my case, it was an apprenticeship. I don't know that they're accepting those anymore, but without something else. But back in the day, with providing a great deal of documentation and credentials, then you could enter the certified professional midwife through the apprenticeship route. Okay, so they are not a licensing body. They are a certifying body.
Okay.
And then each state license midwives, or not, like our state does not license midwives, but each state decides whether and or how a midwife can practice legally.
Okay. And how long into your birth-keeping journey did you decide to become certified?
Okay, well, that is a whole different topic. And it's not really birth work, but it's political work. So in the 80s, we also, the old-timers, we became very political and really worked to see if we could create a midwifery process that would be recognized nationally. And each state also was busy trying to create associations, midwife associations for their states. And it was successful. Through the 80s, every state developed midwifery organizations or associations. And then through MANA, the Midwives Alliance of North America, then NARM began to be born, which would be a certifying body. And before it was a certifying body, it was a registry exam. And it was not a certification, it was just a registry exam. And it was national, and actually North America, right? So it was also Canada and Mexico at the time. So I was very busy in all of that political arena. And that's not birth work, but it is birth advocacy, you could call it maybe, or something like that. So as I worked for decades helping see, wow, how can we move midwifery into this place where it would be, I don't mean to say standardized, but there would be a language that the midwives could speak and that was different than a certified nurse midwife, like the medical route. So I was a part of all of that. And so being a part of that, like the applications department, was here in my cottage in Missouri, the first part of NARM's entry. So in 1993, I filled out all of those. We had finally, after decades of meetings and this and that, came up with the what would be required, how many births, what skills, what exam, what questions on the exam, and da-da-da-da-da. Those were the three parts of the certification. And I was part of that movement that helped develop those. And so I filled out all the papers and passed the exam, and in 1995 got that certificate.
Wow. Okay.
And then, of course, the founding mothers of NARM, they're not there anymore, the original ones. And life moves forward, and new boards, and new this, and new that, and things. That is a whole different and big story. Robbie Davis Floyd just wrote a book about that, the history of all of that process. I forgot the name of it, but you could research Robbie Davis Floyd in her latest book. And part of that was that one of the meetings we had, the skills that they wanted to require were IV therapy and carrying Pitocin, and I can't remember, and amniotomy. And I blocked that and said no. And so it was a big deal in Florida, actually. We were in Florida for that meeting. It was a very big deal. It caused a huge angry outburst. And out of that came, because it went on for hours and hours and hours, and I kept blocking it, because I said, it's not just me. I'm representing all of my people in Missouri, and we do not practice that way, and it would prohibit us from being part of this new certification process that we just all worked on. No, it's not a beginning skill. It's not entry-level skill. People can add it later or what, I don't know, but no, I cannot agree. So it just was a big problem, and it led to what was called the job survey or the job analysis. And so thousands of surveys were sent out across the United States to find out, do midwives indeed, entry-level midwives, the senior midwives as well, but do they use PIT and do, these more medical skills? The first job analysis came back as no, and so it was not required. That was fantastic. Then the MEEC schools started, and more graduates from MEEC schools, and this and that, and time went forward, and the second job analysis, the midwife said, no, actually we do that now. And so then it started becoming required. More and more things started becoming required, including neonatal resuscitation, and that was the main reason that I ended up giving up that certificate or that certification. You can't ever not know what you know, but it's because they were requiring neonatal resuscitation all levels, including the advanced levels that I consider to be dangerous and harmful. to newborns, and it's not even accurate. So it's appropriate for neonatal resuscitation was developed for preemies originally and for very at-risk newborns. And so that is not something that people do at home. So it was inapplicable, but it was still required. And no amount of me trying to negotiate that was successful. So I developed the newborn first breaths teaching so that people who absolutely understood more the interrelationship of the first breath between the baby and the mother could support that in a more appropriate and accurate way if they were attending a birth. Or even if they're just the mother and they've been estranged from their instincts, they could renew their instincts and learn this. So that's what created that letter.
Well, thank you for sharing. I do know that the Free Birth Society podcast, they did just release, I believe you're at the Matriarch Festival, and you're talking about the newborn first breath. So I would encourage all of my listeners to go and listen. And I think you also have a pamphlet on your website about it.
Probably so. Again, I have a media guru. She's just absolutely fantastic, named Carrie of Austin, and she does take care of making sure that information is all out there and hopefully accurate. Interesting you say it that way, Lark, because I have some dear friends in Greece and Athens that I'm working with about the newborn first breaths. I've gone there with Turkey and Germany and taught it there once, and they would like me to teach it again, but we're not quite ready for travel. And so they listened to the podcast and said, "Oh, sister, this is good enough for the beginners. Just this little bit of talking. This is enough for beginners." Great. So yes, anyone is very welcome. It's I think Emily's got it, or it's on my website, or surely you can find it somewhere.
Absolutely. And I wrote a book in August of last year, and it's an ebook, and I talk about birth. In the beginning, I talk about the fact that I don't. This book isn't necessarily for pregnant women. It's more about anyone who's interested in mammalian birth. And I also center the book around being gentle. And I had a question for you about just the newborn's first breath. I've wondered, because I've pictured myself giving birth, and I've wondered what would happen if getting the baby to breathe wasn't my priority. Is that something that babies do on their own? I've noticed when I watch videos of free births or unassisted births, immediately the mother is rubbing the back, getting the baby to try to get the baby to breathe. And is that something that we've adapted because we are sort of in-home births, replicating, copying, mirroring what we see doctors do in the hospital? Or is it just a natural instinct fear that the mother has that the baby won't breathe?
These are very good questions, Lark. But first of all, you don't need to get the baby to breathe. She's going to breathe. I mean, she wants to breathe. It's her whole mechanism of life. And as I described with my third baby, when I just caught her myself and put her against my chest, I wasn't trying to get her to breathe. She was just a baby. But if the baby was not acting right. So I think just knowing the 5 universal maternal behaviors that contribute to newborn first breath, the primal, first of all, it's probably not good to watch humans give birth, even at home or whatever. The film that I recommended from the Attica Zoo, where the chimps are giving birth and there's a little chimp midwife and a I don't know if you've watched that. It's the only birth film that my third daughter, the one that I held against my chest and caught myself, it's the only birth video that she watched. It's just two chimps, and the mother chimp is giving birth, obviously, to a first time mother. She's a first time mother, but it's a fantastic footage of a primal birth, and you can see what the baby does and what the mother does to elicit those first breaths. But it's just instinctual. You don't need to be thinking about it. If you watch little animals give birth, if there's one that's just not moving, it's not doing anything, it's just laying there, then you're not going to just stare at it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is Lark's mom, Melanie. I noticed that in videos when I do watch animals give birth, they don't necessarily run over right away and start like licking or moving around the baby. They sit, and then if the baby doesn't move for a little bit, then they start trying to, lick the baby and move the baby around for the baby to stand up on its feet or do some kind of like movement or breathing or something.
Yes, it's very primal, Lark. You wouldn't be thinking about, I need to get my baby to breathe. You're going to be just euphoric and enjoying your baby. You've just done the hardest work of your life. You're not even necessarily thinking about your baby, okay? You're ecstatic that it's out. You've been trying to get this thing out. And it's out, whether it's 1 hour and 53 minutes or whether it's, many, many days, many, 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 many hours. That baby that was born in 1 hour and 53 minutes, her first child, she was 43 weeks. She labored for over 3 days. She pushed for 6 hours. So it was very opposite of what her own birth was like. So you're doing whatever you got to do to get your baby born. And by the time it's born, your brain is in its primal spot. It's not thinking about things. Unless you've got a lot of people around you forcing you into your forebrain, people chatting and talking and asking you questions or saying something or being in your 3 feet bubble, then it will draw you to your forebrain. But otherwise, you're in your old brain. And your old brain is going to be smelling and feeling and maybe seeing if you open your eyes, but hearing, and all of those senses are telling you everything that your body wants to know. Like your body is still connected to that baby's body, and the baby's body is still connected to your body, and the baby's body is needing to make a big transition. It must take a breath. It doesn't have to take a breath right away. It has a vocal cord that's been breathing for it for 9 months, and it's still breathing for it. Nothing's changed. The baby's heart is still beating. It's still pulling that oxygenated blood into its system, just like it's been doing. The placenta is a fetal organ. It's not a maternal organ. And so it's the baby it's not the mother's blood pressure, it's the baby that's pulling that oxygenated blood into her body. And she's going to do that until she feels like, okay, now everything physiologically, chemically has changed, and now I must use all that practicing of my lungs. I must use it now. And so she's doing everything to take her first breath, and your body is sensing everything. It's not about first breath. It's about, it's not about breathing. It's about being alive. And your body is smelling and hearing and touching and sensing that this dance is now happening on the outside rather than the inside.
That's beautiful. I've never thought of it that way. The minute the baby's born, when I watch videos or I'm reading a birth story, that the first thing I look for really is when does the baby start breathing and all that. But just thinking about what you said, it's the entire experience, the baby feeling and opening its eyes to see. It's just, wow, it's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Sister, for joining me today and sharing about your journey to birth-keeping and midwifery, and hearing your mother's beautiful birth story and your beautiful birth story, and hearing a little about the births of your daughter. Especially your first birth reminded me a little bit of mine, just the duration and being a first-time mom. So I think a really good way to close out would be for you to hear my birth story.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell it, Mom?
Okay, I'm not really prepared. Okay, so I was like a teenager when I got pregnant with Lark, and I didn't really have any guidance. In fact, I didn't even find out I was pregnant until I was like 5 months along. And the reason I found out that I was pregnant is because a friend of mine, she thought she was, and she wanted me to accompany her to a place where they give free pregnancy tests. And I was like, I'm just going to take one too because I have nothing else to do. And so I went in and I took one, and instantly within a second, like the minute the urine went over to the section where it would tell you if you're pregnant or not, it just changed like instantly into positive. I'm thinking, what the world is going on? And I just started crying, like just instantly. I was just like, just crying. And then, because I was scared, I was happy, I was a ball of emotions. And the lady, actually, it was just like a center where like nuns were. And, she told me right away, she's like, well, if you're not ready to have a baby, you can have an abortion and all that stuff. And then I was like, well, a lot to think about. So I took a bunch of pamphlets, and along the bus ride back to my home, I was crying. I was still crying because I didn't know what to do with any of this information. And, so fast forward. So I went through my whole entire pregnancy alone, basically. I didn't have my mom there to tell me anything, even though she lived like 15 minutes away. And I didn't have any women around me, like nothing, no information, what not to do, what to do, none of that. Then I got involved with a guy that was not Lark's birth father. He became my husband like 4 months after Lark was born, but if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't like have the necessities that I needed as a mom. Like, I went and I put some things on layaway, like because, and then through out the pregnancy, I had like one sonogram, so they couldn't tell me the sex of my baby. And then the position that the baby was in, she was like, well, now I know it's a she because it's Lark, but the baby was like kind of like hiding the private part, like really protecting it. The nurse said. So she couldn't tell me the sex, so I bought I put some unisex clothing on layaway and some blankets and because I didn't have a list. I just kind of went with it. And then so fast forward, I got up early one day because I was really hungry. I wanted some macaroni and cheese and some pork chops. So I started cooking, and then I was like, I want some lemonade. So I went to my cousin's house that lived across the way, and I asked her if she had some sugar, and she told me no, and I got just very upset. How could she not have sugar? And I was walking back to my apartment, and then all of a sudden, just water. And I was like, I know I didn't feel myself. So this has to be, like, my water just broke. So I went in to tell
the gentleman that I would soon marry 4 months later, that I think my water just broke, and I had an apartment full of family members, my brother, my cousins, and all that. But I didn't let anyone know, because at the same time, I was kind of like, in my whole entire pregnancy, it wasn't celebrated, so it's kind of like I did something wrong. That's the way everyone made me feel, so I didn't want to share with anyone that I was going into birth, like my water just broke. I just told him, and then we were driving to the hospital, and he was driving like a little turtle. I'm like, are you kidding me? If I have this, first of all, I didn't feel any pain, and what I was taught was when your water breaks, you feel pain. So that means you're in labor, and I'm thinking something's wrong because I don't feel anything, and I don't feel my baby moving. So I'm like, what are you doing? Let's get to the hospital. Like, I didn't know what was going to take place, So I told him to step on it and let's get there. So finally, we get there, and then, of course, they take me upstairs, and she's asking me questions. Are you feeling pain? I'm like, no, I don't feel any pain, and all that good stuff. So they take me to a room with a bed. It wasn't like the delivery room, but they just had me they told me to put on the nightgown thingy, and then just to lay in bed, and because the baby was not going to be here until they average it to about 7:30 p.m. And when I got there, it was about 12:50. And I was like, okay. And then I started feeling pain. And I just remember movies, the women, they breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the what do they call it? The breathing thing? Lamaze. And I just start mimicking them and how they did it. I'm like, and just, and all that. And that helped the pain go away. I was like, wow, this actually works, And the nurse will come and check on me, leave, and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, I just feel like, let me just say this first. There was a TV on. And when I started feeling the contractions, like I said, it was so painful. And then the nurse came in, and she was like, wow. She's like, you speak Spanish? I'm like, I didn't even know that was Spanish. I was like, I understand exactly everything this person is saying right now. Like, the pain. It was the pain. And then she left, and then the pain just kept, it just kept coming. And then I was like, and the gentleman who would soon be my husband, he was sitting in there. I was like, I got to get off this bed, and I got to call a nurse because something's going on, something's happening, and I don't know what's going on. So I get off the bed, and I feel like I can't walk properly because I can't close really my legs well because something's going on. And then I just walk to the hallway. I'm like, hello. And then I get back into the bed, and she's like, and she helps me back in, and then she looks, and she's like, she sees the baby's head. I was like, okay. And then the midwife, she comes in, and then I have my baby right there at 3:50 p.m. And then with 3 pushes, Lark came out. So, and she tore me just a little bit. So I kind of get what you were saying when you were saying that you were in a lot of pain. When they cut you, they put some stitches. And in fact, she tried to numb me before they put but I still felt, I guess it didn't work because I still felt a little sewing pain or whatever. But, yeah, and then I was tired after giving birth to Lark. When they lift Lark up, they called the guy with whom Mary over, and they asked him if he wanted to cut the umbilical cord, and of course he did. Unfortunately, it took him a little while because he couldn't figure out how the scissors work, so they were trying to help him along. No, it's this way, that way, and I'm just laying there tired, and they lift Lark up, and to show me her, and then that's what I said about no support. I know, I feel like we should just want to just be that nurturing kind. But I looked at my baby, because my mom, she left town. I told her not to because the doctor told me I may be having Lark sooner, but she left anyway. So I ended up having Lark without her even coming. But then when the doctor held her up, I was very happy to see my baby. But then at the same time, I was kind of a little bit sad too because I didn't have anyone around me. But I looked at her and I fell asleep, went upstairs. I woke up to a nurse holding my baby, putting a bottle in her mouth. And I'm like, Scourge, wait a minute. We're not doing that. I don't want to bottle feed my baby. I would prefer to breastfeed her. I didn't know about that either. No one told me about they'll be best to breastfeed my baby because my mom, she said that none of her kids would take her milk. So she bottle fed us. But I just felt like God gave me these for a reason. Like, they make milk. I gotta put them to use. I mean, it's stupid not to put it to you. Not stupid, sorry, ladies. Anyone out there that's bottle feeding your baby, and it's a choice that you made. It's perfect for you. It's not stupid in that way. I just meant like, I was not working, so I didn't have money to buy bottles and formula. So I figured it'll be crazy of me to use like a little bit of money that I had to get bottles versus using what God gave me. So the nurse, she helped me latch Lark on and without a problem. And I was producing so much milk that it was crazy that I wouldn't put it all to use anyways. Yeah, that was my birth story. Yeah, that's in a nutshell. Thank you guys for, listening to my birth story. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Blessings. Lark, can we sing the She Bear song to end?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else, Lark, that you want to say?
Just that I feel really, really blessed to be in the presence of two really beautiful, nurturing women.
Thank you.
Well, you're especially blessed to have your mother believing in you when, that was an interruption in her lineage, and then there she is showing up for you.
Yes.
I honor both of you in that way. She Bear song, it means birth like the she bear. So we've heard some stories today about women who birth like the she bear, and any of you out there that are pregnant or standing alongside of a holy mother, yes, may the power of the she bear be with you at the moment of your birth. Yana hoe ne. Yana hoe ne. Hoe ne. Hey ne. Yana hoe ne. Yana hoe ne. Yana hoe ne. Hoe ne, hey ne, yana hoe ne.
Thank you, sister.
Blessed be, blessed do.
Thank you, sister. Have a good day.